Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys just how easy it is to make cinematic music using Komplete. So we're going to be doing a track-by-track breakdown of a cue that I made last year when I had Komplete 12 Ultimate, and I'm going to be showing you the instruments that I used from there. So let's get into today's video. Okay, first, let me give you the briefing for the track that I was working on. So it was looking for a tension instrumental that had a synth pulse, and the reference tracks were all the Cliff Martinez stuff from Contagion track. So I did a previous video on breaking down one of those other tracks that I made, but today we're going to be breaking down another one that I incorporated more of the organic instruments into it. So because that was the nature of it, first I started out with the pulsing synth bass to begin with, and in this I actually used Analog Dreams. So I used a synth from there, and it sounded like this. So that was literally just a little short synth bass sound that I added Replica to. Replica is a delay that comes with Native Instruments Komplete, and so I added the 16th dotted delay and gave it the wide one, so it sounded like that with it. Just to kind of give it that little more ambiance, and that's also what gave it the pulsing. And then the next thing I added was action strings. So if you're not familiar with action strings, this is literally the best thing for somebody who has no idea how to do orchestral programming to start off with, because it's going to give you phrases and it's going to give you ideas of the way that strings are used, especially in a tension cue or something that's building with action and intensity. It basically, it has pre-played phrases within it, and you can go through and change them all, but essentially all I did here was play the chord that I wanted to hear played. You can see my notes laid out here, so I'm just pressing it once and it does the phrasing. So let me show you here. So it's got that dun 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 dun, and I can play some different ones for it if you want. So if you were to hold that repeatedly, it's just going to do that dun, 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 that galloping rhythm, and you can change the rhythm. So that's what's really awesome about action strings. So you can make, tension building stuff. You can make a chase scene type of thing. It's obviously action movie strings is what it is. And then I also used Heaviosity Evolved Mutations too. This is one of my favorite plugins for making this type of music, because like you can just go through the presets and find endless possibilities. And so that's where the real driving pulse comes in. So those two combined, the other synth bass with the delay plus this. And again, Heaviosity is it's a rhythmic suite is what it's titled. So and it's depending where you are on the keyboard, it plays a different thing, but it's all the same rhythm. So then the next section, we want to progress, we want to introduce new things. We wanted to introduce some percussion, and when you're looking for this type of tension building vibe, what better place to start than using action strikes alongside action strings? So action strikes is obviously percussion, preset rhythms, etc. And I also forgot to mention, guys, this is one of the very first attempts that I ever made at making a piece of music like this. If you were like me, you're not adept at orchestral programming or anything like that, but you know what you can hear in your head in terms of building up with the instruments, you're gonna find success using these. So the action strikes loop sounded like this. And if you can see, I'm using different parts of it because remember, on these, each key actually does something different. It's either a different rhythm, a different fill. And next I went to Omnisphere for something that was pulsing. This was actually an EDM patch technically. And then I actually had a little bit of a melody to it. That just adds the tension, something in that higher frequency, which typically when it's in that high frequency, it removes it from the possibility of being used as an underscore for TV. So this ended up being more like something that would be score to movie because it's a little invasive in terms of the dialogue. So let me just show you all together what we're working with here right now. Okay, so then we had our 4-bar pattern. So once again, we want to introduce something new into the mix, and I went to, this is one of my favorite piano sounds ever from the original Evolve from Heaviosity. Sounds so good. Sounds super Nine Inch Nails to me. And then I wanted to add a little bit more oomph in here, so I went to Battery 4 for a sample for a kick drum, and I added an echo onto it. So it's just adding the pulsing to it, right? So as we progress, we add other instruments into the mix. Here, once again, I go to Heaviosity Evolve. So it's just another layer, but it adds to the pulsing sound and the movement of the track itself. The interesting thing here was I brought in another instance of action strings. This is 2 different examples of the rhythms that come within action strings. So the original one will start and then it goes into the second one to fill it. Because the idea when you're building an instrumental cue like this, there's just that it has to develop throughout the track. So as you can see, every 4 bars we're introducing something new, and then at the end of 16 bars, I go into a key change, and then we do that for 2 sections, and then we end off with the last section. Doesn't introduce anything new, but it pitches things up an octave or down an octave to give the variation in it. And then I also added some automation onto the synth bass up here. So it added a little bit more movement to it because you really want it to peak at the end, right? So I'll play this last section here for you so you see how it really built up. So it has that stinger ending at the end. And that is essentially the track, guys. It's 1 minute and 45 seconds long, which is in that sweet spot of the 90 seconds to 2 minutes in length. We have variation. Key change is not always really recommended. But again, because this is something that I was new at, I was just trying things out to add the variation in there. This track hasn't been placed anywhere or signed anywhere, but to me, it just sticks out. 1, like sentimentally, because it's one of the earlier tracks that I attempted to make. And 2, it really unlocked the power of Komplete for me. When I first set out to start making these investigative tension, sci-fi tension types of cues, I really had no idea what I was getting into. But when I started putting the sounds together in Komplete, I realized how well they work together. That's something that's very different than Omnisphere. I feel like Omnisphere is really easy to get lost in. Yes, they have a ton of cinematic sounds in it as well. I mean, I used it in this piece. The way that it's put together in Native Instruments, where you could go and you could just make something with the war drums from Action Strikes and drive home some crazy action strings and throw in a fat pulsing synth like I did in this, and you can make yourself a pretty interesting piece of music. The way that the sounds work so well together, almost effortlessly, is really what keeps me coming back to Native Instruments. It's the thing that I love the most, is just like the synergy between all of their products. I mean, the name is Komplete, right? Like that's the whole concept behind it. It's the complete composer's tool. So guys, that's the track breakdown. I'm gonna be making some videos where I make cinematic music from scratch using Native Instruments. I'll probably even put a timer up on the screen just to see how quickly I can build a 90-second cue. But we're gonna dig more into what Komplete has to offer and how somebody who has no idea how to make orchestral types of music or this type of music in general can really benefit from Komplete. I just want to be able to show more people that you can do it too. Like if you have that musical aspiration, majority of what I've done in the past is hip hop beat based or EDM based, which EDM is a little more cinematic than hip hop, I would say. There's a lot more scene changes than there is in hip hop beats for the most part. Like if you're somebody that has Komplete or even Contact, and you're just sitting on piles and piles of possibility, is basically the point that I want to get across. So we're going to dive into more Native Instruments product. I'm going to leave you guys right now with the whole thing from start to finish. If you have any questions about how to use this stuff, let me know what you guys think of the track. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.